Jessica Cotta was an ordinary girl, living a normal life. She went to school, hung out with friends, and spent her evenings doing homework or watching TV. Her life was as typical as it could get, until one fateful night, everything changed. It was a night like any other, or so she thought. Little did she know, her destiny was about to take a dramatic turn. While walking home from a friend's house, Jessica felt a sharp pain on her hand. She looked down to see a spider scurrying away. Bitten by a radioactive spider, I found myself imbued with incredible abilities. At first, I didn't realize what had happened, but soon, strange things began to occur. The next morning, I woke up feeling different, stronger, faster. I could lift cars with ease, something I never imagined possible. I could stick to walls and climb them effortlessly. My senses were heightened, a sixth sense tingling within me, alerting me to dangers before they happened. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. At first, I was scared, overwhelmed by this newfound power coursing through my veins. I didn't know what to do or who to turn to. I felt like a freak, an outcast. The world around me seemed to change, and I wasn't sure if I could keep up. The responsibility that came with these powers weighed heavily on my shoulders. I tried to ignore it, pretend it never happened. I wanted to go back to my normal life, to be just Jessica again. But destiny, it seemed, had other plans. The more I tried to suppress my abilities, the stronger they became. It was as if the universe was pushing me towards something greater, something I couldn't yet understand. One night, while walking home, I witnessed a robbery. A man was being mugged right in front of me. My heart raced, and I knew I couldn't sit idly by. The power within me surged, and I felt a sense of purpose. I had to act. I couldn't let this happen. I couldn't let the bad guys win. This power, these abilities weren't a burden. They were a gift, a responsibility. I realized that I had been given these powers for a reason, to help others, to make a difference. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to embrace it. I had to become the hero I was meant to be. Donning a makeshift costume, I swung into action, saving the day as the amazing Spider-Woman. It wasn't easy at first. I made mistakes, stumbled and fell. But with each challenge, I grew stronger, more confident. I learned to trust my instincts, to harness my powers. I became a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in the darkness.
Word of Spider-Woman's exploits spread like wildfire through the city. People began to talk, to whisper about the mysterious hero who swung through the streets at night. The city, once plagued by fear and crime, began to feel a sense of hope. A new era was dawning, and Spider-Woman was at the heart of it. Here was a hero, they whispered, who fought for the little guy, who understood their struggles. Spider-Woman became a symbol of resilience, of courage. She stood up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. She fought for justice, for peace, and in doing so she inspired others to do the same. Hope, it seemed, had a new name, and it wore a mask. Jessica Cotta, once an ordinary girl, had discovered her destiny. She had become Spider-Woman, a hero for the ages, and her story was just beginning. Jessica's newfound life as Spider-Woman was exhilarating. She had embraced her powers with a sense of wonder and responsibility, feeling the wind rush past her as she swung through the city. The skyscrapers were her playground, and the streets below her canvas. Every leap, every swing was a testament to her newfound freedom and purpose. Swinging through the concrete canyons, a smile plastered across her face, she felt invincible. The city was alive beneath her, a bustling metropolis that she had sworn to protect. The people below, unaware of the silent guardian above, went about their lives, and Jessica felt a deep connection to each one of them. But every hero, as she was about to learn, faces their trials. Enters Venom, a dark shadow that loomed over her bright world. Venom was a force unlike any she had encountered before. His presence was a stark reminder that with great power comes great responsibility and sometimes great danger. A creature born of darkness and rage, Venom was the antithesis of everything Spider-Woman stood for. His very existence was a challenge to her ideals, a monstrous embodiment of chaos and destruction. Where Jessica brought light, Venom brought shadows, creeping into every corner of her world. Where she was hope, he was despair. Jessica's mission was to inspire and protect, to be a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed dark. Venom, on the other hand, thrived on fear and despair, seeking to snuff out the light wherever he found it. Where she was control, he was chaos. Venom's unpredictability was one of his greatest weapons. He thrived in the midst of chaos. using it to his advantage, while Jessica struggled to maintain order and protect those she cared about.
Their first encounter was nothing short of explosive. The clash of their opposing forces sent shockwaves through the city, a battle of wills as much as of strength. Jessica had faced many foes, but none like Venom. His sheer power and ferocity were overwhelming. Venom, a hulking behemoth of teeth and tendrils, was a nightmare come to life. His appearance alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of even the bravest heroes. But it was his relentless aggression that truly set him apart. He crashed into Jessica's world with the subtlety of a runaway train. Every encounter left her reeling, struggling to keep up with his brutal onslaught. It was a test of her resolve, pushing her to her limits and beyond. He sought to break her. Venom's attacks were not just physical, they were psychological. He aimed to shatter her spirit, to make her doubt herself and her mission. Every blow was a challenge to her very identity as Spider-Woman, to shatter the hope she instilled in others. Venom knew that if he could break Jessica, he could break the hope she represented. His goal was to turn her strength into weakness, to make her a symbol of failure rather than inspiration.
Their battle raged across the city's skyline, a ballet of brutal blows and acrobatic maneuvers. The rooftops became their battleground, the city their arena. Each move was a dance of life and death, a struggle for dominance in a world that seemed to hang in the balance. A ballet of brutal blows and acrobatic maneuvers. Jessica's agility and skill were put to the test as she faced Venom's raw power. Every flip, every kick was a desperate attempt to gain the upper hand, to find a weakness in her formidable foe. Jessica, though skilled, was clearly outmatched. Venom's strength was monstrous, his aggression relentless. She fought with everything she had, but it was like trying to hold back a tidal wave with her bare hands. Venom's strength was monstrous, his aggression relentless. He attacked with a fury that seemed to know no bounds, each strike more powerful than the last. Jessica could feel her strength waning, her resolve being tested to its limits. He slammed her against buildings. The impact was bone-jarring, each collision a reminder of Venom's overwhelming power. Jessica struggled to regain her footing, to find a way to turn the tide of battle in her favor. Ensnared her in his tendrils. The tendrils were like living chains, wrapping around her with a vice-like grip. Every movement was a struggle, every breath a battle. Venom's hold was suffocating, his intent clear, to crush her spirit. Each blow chipped away at Jessica's resolve, whispering doubts into her mind. The pain was intense, but it was the psychological assault that was the hardest to bear. Venom's taunts echoed in her mind, feeding her fears and insecurities, whispering doubts into her mind. Jessica's confidence wavered, her determination faltered. But deep within, a spark of hope remained. She knew that to give in to despair was to let Venom win, and that was something she could not allow. Just when Jessica thought things couldn't get any worse, a new threat emerged from the shadows. The city had already been grappling with the chaos unleashed by Venom, but this new menace was something else entirely. It was as if the very essence of madness had taken form, a crimson spectre that seemed to revel in the destruction it caused. If Venom was chaos, Carnage was pure, unadulterated madness. Venom's rampages were terrifying, but they had a method to their madness. Carnage, on the other hand, was a force of nature, unpredictable and uncontrollable. His actions were driven by a primal urge to destroy, to inflict pain and suffering on anyone and anything in his path. A crimson whirlwind of destruction fueled by a lust for bloodshed. Carnage didn't discriminate. He tore through the city with a ferocity that left even the most hardened criminals trembling in fear. His presence was a blight on the city, a dark cloud that seemed to suck the life out of everything it touched. Innocent bystanders were mere playthings to him. He took a perverse pleasure in their terror, in the way they scrambled to escape his grasp. The streets were filled with the sounds of screams and the sight of people fleeing for their lives. It was a scene of utter pandemonium, a nightmare come to life. Buildings crumbled under his touch. No structure was safe from his wrath. He tore through steel and concrete as if they were made of paper, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. The city's skyline, once a symbol of progress and hope, was now a testament to Carnage's unrelenting fury. The city, once vibrant and alive, was quickly transforming into a macabre playground for this crimson terror. Streets that were once bustling with activity were now deserted, littered with debris and the remnants of shattered lives. The air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke, and the eerie silence of a city held hostage by fear.
Spider-Woman knew she had to act fast. The longer Carnage was allowed to rampage unchecked, the more lives would be lost. But this was no ordinary villain. Carnage was a living nightmare, a creature of pure malevolence. She had faced many foes in her time, but none quite like this. But how do you fight an enemy who thrives on chaos? An enemy who seems to grow stronger with every act of destruction? Spider-Woman had to dig deep to find a way to counteract the madness that Carnage embodied. She couldn't afford to let fear take hold. She had to be the beacon of hope in this dark time, whose very existence seemed to defy logic and reason. Carnage was more than just a physical threat. He was a psychological one as well. His very presence seemed to warp reality, to make the impossible possible. Spider-Woman had to stay grounded, to remember who she was and what she stood for. She couldn't let Carnage's madness infect her mind. This was a whole new level of terror. The city had faced many threats over the years, but none as terrifying as this. Carnage was a force of nature, a living embodiment of chaos and destruction. Spider-Woman had to find a way to stop him, to bring an end to his reign of terror. The streets became a battleground as I desperately tried to contain Carnage's rampage. Every corner of the city was a potential war zone, every alleyway a potential ambush. Spider-Woman had to be on constant alert, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. The fate of the city rested on her shoulders, but every blow I landed seemed to only fuel his frenzy. Carnage seemed to feed off the violence, to grow stronger with every hit. It was like fighting a hurricane, a force of nature that couldn't be stopped. Spider-Woman had to find a way to break the cycle, to turn the tide in her favor. My webs, usually so strong, were torn apart like flimsy threads. Carnage's strength was beyond anything Spider-Woman had ever encountered. She had to adapt, to find new ways to fight back. This was a battle of wits as much as it was a battle of strength. But Spider-Woman was determined. She couldn't let Carnage win. The city needed her, and she would do whatever it took to protect it. This was her home, and she would fight to her last breath to save it from the crimson terror that threatened to consume it.
As Jessica faced what seemed like insurmountable odds, a beacon of hope appeared in the sky. Streaking across the heavens, a figure of immense power made its presence known. Supergirl had arrived. Drawn by the cries of a city in peril, Supergirl, the Kryptonian cousin of Superman, wasted no time in joining the fray. Her arrival was like a bolt of lightning, electrifying the battlefield. Carnage, momentarily stunned by this new arrival, turned his crimson gaze towards her.
Supergirl, with her incredible strength and unwavering determination, immediately went toe-to-toe with the Crimson Terror. The two titans clashed, their battle shaking the very foundations of the city.
Seeing Supergirl in action, battling Carnage with such ferocity and grace, reignited a spark of hope within me. I wasn't alone in this fight. Together, we could overcome this nightmare.